So I have spoken to probably a half dozen other Trek writers, and your name has come up probably in each of the interviews. All of it positive, of course. But they
Well,
were saying that yeah, you weren't going to be able to come to the show this year because you've got life stuff going on.
yeah, well, family wedding.
Right, and I was talking to Mr. Weinstein, and he was like, "Well, I could just like shoot him a message, see if you want to talk to him anyway." So I was like, "Absolutely."
See,
So
that's not so
here we
hard.
are. Yeah. I run a website called StarTrekBookClub.com. It's not
Hmm.
affiliated with anything official. I'd love to get in contact with anyone at CBS to get like on their list of fan sites. But its primary thing is to point out current works of former Star Trek writers and reviews and new books and comics and all that jazz. And as you can imagine, your name is all over the site for all the Trek work that you've done. Uh, and it was through the Trek
What's
work,
interesting is I haven't done any in ages, but it's nice to be
right?
thought
Well,
of.
right. Well, it's the older stuff that like you see a Star Trek book out there, and you're like, okay, how many else are there? And you start to
Right.
look, and there's nearly 1,000 printed tie-in books, including fiction and nonfiction. uh,
Yeah, I mean, there's one guy who every time he acquires a new Star Trek book says, "This is the 437th reference book." It's like it's incredible.
right. I want to be that guy. I've seen his posts on Facebook. I think I'm friends with him on Facebook, and it really is incredible because I think I've picked up was it probably about three unofficial reference books this year, and then probably one like the coffee books, the coffee table books with they're I think it's Titan is publishing them. They're huge, but they're retrospectives of like the movies. I have
Well, if
to
they're Titan, at least they're licensed.
yeah, yeah, those are all licensed. They're gorgeous. They're filled to the brim with images. But yeah, it's crazy how much stuff is out there. But it was through the Star Trek stuff that I was like, okay, I'm gonna like really dig into this and start following all these authors on their websites. And you're pretty prolific on your own website and social medias,
Well, that's what they tell authors. You got to stay engaged with your audience. So that's me staying engaged.
right? And it was amazing to me how much of your other work that I'm familiar with, but like I didn't have names to go with it. Um, your time with all the big comic book publishers was right when I
Hmm.
was in the prime of like reading all those books. Uh, and you're still publishing right now, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And you're also teaching kids in school,
Yes.
and you're also doing editing and other like behind the scenes work as well.
You can say that.
Okay,
I keep
so
my
you're
hand in. I'm not bored.
right. Yeah, you're a pretty busy guy. Um, One thing that was on the short list of things that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not sure if you're actually at liberty to talk about, is that on
Hmm.
your Facebook profile it says you're uh, the news editor for Comic Mix. And
Well, that's when Comic Mix was still paying me, but yes.
okay, so are you still doing work with them, or is that just
Yes,
a
I am. I help them keep some news up there, mostly press release stuff, but the rest of it is I review books and CDs or DVDs, I should say, for the website currently. It is not as robust as it used to be, which is a real shame. It had such potential as being pretty much what Popverse is now.
Mhm. So what happened with them? Like what started their decline? Was it just something that fizzled?
It, struggling for advertising revenue to keep it viable, like
Right.
so many other websites in so many other fields.
Right. Well, the thing that brought them to my attention was the Dr. Seuss Star Trek mashup, and that's the thing that I'm not
Sure.
sure if like you're able to talk about at all.
I was not involved in it. That's all Glenn Hellman and David Gerald.
Okay.
Glenn has gone on at length in various places, including Comic Mix, about it.
Hmm.
You know, they really did a lot of interesting legal legwork to try and show the Seuss estate that this really was not ripping them off as much as honoring them. And they discovered all sorts of interesting things the Seuss estate was negligent about, which gave them some leverage with the judge. So it ended the way it ended, and you know, it's a lovely book.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any hope for that ever getting to see the light of day?
Who can say?
Oh
Never
man, it
say
would
never.
be, yeah. It would be fantastic to see that in one way or the other, because the artwork that I've seen, it's fantastic, and
Oh,
the
Ty
story
Templeton did
is
a brilliant job.
right. Um, the other thing that was on my short list to talk to you about was a book called Q's Guide to the Continuum, which,
Sure.
to my knowledge, hasn't received an electronic version of it yet. And
Not that I know of.
do you have any insight on why that hasn't happened for that specific book?
Not a clue. Pocket works in mysterious ways, I guess, or Gallery,
Hmm.
which is its current imprint. You know, Mike Friedman was originally hired to work on the book and brought me in when deadlines became problematic for him, and it was a joy to do. It was a lot of fun. I gather it didn't sell to their satisfaction, and why it's not digital when everything else is got me.
Right. Yeah, because
I mean,
I'm
you know,
sure
there
there are other Trek books that have sold less or were less popular that have already been
could be.
ported over.
I mean, there was a TNG crossover that was a series of ebooks that has never been collected in print or collected as an omnibus for digital. So, you know, there are gaps in their library.
Yeah, there is. And either way it goes, like it's unfortunate that like there's not parity on both sides of that equation. Because
Hmm.
I'd say that most people are reading digital nowadays, especially because you just run out
I
of room.
Well, I have no statistics, but I do know that ebook sales peaked back a number of years, but the last numbers I looked at for 2023 sales, it's still print. Audio is eclipsed digital.
Wow. That really is surprising. Although I say that, and then my wife, she consumes most of her books through audio because she goes for walks and listens to them, and then she listens to them before she goes to sleep. So
See?
maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the one that's out of step.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
glad
I
it's
do have
available,
like,
and
yeah,
you
like
know,
all this,
having
yeah,
available print, digital, and audio makes it very accessible to what people want when they want it.
right. Now, one thing that I've talked to others about is the SEE Trek series, which you're
Oh,
familiar
that was
with.
so much fun.
Right, and it was Keith DeCandido that pointed out that like that series ended right as the Kindle was like starting to take off, to take flight,
Yep.
uh, and it's a a longstanding like wish to like have something that I could just like throw $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever, and get like routine content just like given to me, which is working now that Titan's doing the magazines because you get the every month or every other month,
But you're not getting digital versions of this. There are some digital originals,
right?
and then is the magazine digital now?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you're familiar with Hoopla or it used to be Overdrive or Libby, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
sure.
what's there, it's available on one of those as well. So you
Oh,
get like the
cool.
actual magazine on there, and they've done like a guided reading system so that it uses up all the screen real estate. Um, but still, it would be nice to have like a Substack or a Patreon or something like that. That it just shows up in your inbox. And you're like, oh hey, here's another 500
Yeah, I
words
mean,
from yeah.
you know, reviving SCC would be a delight, or something new set in one of the other franchises. You know, entirely possible, but that's up to Pocket and Titan or whoever.
Yeah, now I know you're publishing with Crazy Eight for the obvious reasons. You helped found the group. Who else are you publishing with right now?
You know, it varies based on the assignment. So, for Inside Editions, which I did one book with a decade back, I'm doing with Ed Gross, the Superman the definitive history. It's this oversized 400 plus
Yeah.
page extravaganza that'll be out in October. Other than that, the pre-order page just went up. So Christopher D. Abbott does these series of collections of Sherlock Holmes novellas. So the third volume just came out, and I'll be in the fourth volume. In fact, I have to finish writing the story tomorrow.
And is that through the International Association of Media Tie-in Writers,
No,
or
no,
is that
not at
another
all.
one?
Christopher has been doing it under his own imprint.
Okay.
And he's, done some of his own original Holmes work that way. And then he's been doing these Cases by Candlelight novella collections. That's entirely his gig. The International Association of Media Tie-in Writers, we do one anthology a year, and it just happens to be that this year's is the Multiverse of Mystery, which is multiversal takes on the Holmes and Watson dynamic.
Right.
And that's a project I was a project manager on, and that is going to be out later this fall.
Okay. I actually just read like we just had our summer conventions here in town, and as it is, I love like picking through the dollar bins, and there's a whole bunch of like DC Elseworld stuff because they did
Sure.
like a summer of Elseworlds for all the annuals, and it
Yes, they
was
did.
yeah, it was like a crossover between Superman and the Jungle Book, which was not
Yes,
up my
Kipling. Yeah.
it wasn't up my alley at all, but I really enjoyed the final product. And
Good.
that's what I look for in like these like these weird things that like I'm not really a Holmes reader, but like the multiverse, like what how can you change that to make it something that's interesting to me? Um that really like attracts my attention because I've read a whole bunch of anthologies like that like some of them don't do it for me, but others do, and that gives you your access point to the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, there's something so iconic about Holmes, and the dynamic of Holmes and Watson as a pair really lends itself to being explored in different dynamics. I mean, we saw that with the Elementary TV show, and you see that every time Holmes is adapted, not just by the media tie-in people. So,
Right.
it,
Yeah, and
it
it's a
it's
dynamic that you recognize in other series too. When
oh
like
sure.
House came on, House, MD, that was very clearly like a Holmes and Watson situation with him and the
Oh,
other
totally.
doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So you've written for Star Trek. You've written for just the Predator franchise, or was it the Predator
I've
and
done
Alien?
Predator, I've done Planet of the Apes, I've done the Green Hornet, Zorro, uh, After Earth. I get around.
Yeah, that's a fair large body of work. The reason I ask about that is I was Instagram stalking you earlier today, and
Oh,
you had some photos of you at a recent convention. You had a whole table of books, and it
yes, the
occurred to
Trek
me
Long
that
Island show.
right, I've not really asked anyone like how are you guys sourcing these books? Are you just talking to the publishers and they send them to you, or do you have deals with like different like book dealers that hook you up with them?
Authors, as part of their contract, usually are able to buy bulk copies at a discount for personal use.
Hmm.
Although, they understand we're likely selling them places,
Right.
but they make their money, so they don't care.
Right, exactly. They're not selling them at a loss to you, right? They're
Yeah, and it used to be Pocket in particular was very generous with the number of comp copies they would send you, and you don't need 30 or 40 copies of any one book, so you sell at conventions.
right. Yeah, and I've picked up a ton of books at the different shows. This Shore Leave is going to be the first one that I've ever been to.
I'm
It's
so
also
sorry I
going to
won't
be
be there then to see you.
right. There's a lot of people that are going to be there, and all of them were like very sad that you weren't going to be there. But everyone understands that life is what it is.
Well, Shore Leave is over time, starting with Howard Weinstein and then me, and then after that, has been very, very welcoming, unlike a lot of other media shows for the authors. So much so that Pocketbooks had previously at one point actually done banners like short, Pocket celebrates Star Trek authors at shore leave or something like that. They would make sure that books that were about to come out debuted at shore leave. They would send posters and flyers and giveaways, whatever the marketing department had that particular summer, which was great. And then more and more authors of other either media tie-in or other genre fiction started showing up. And all of a sudden we became this author mecca, which has been delightful.
Yeah, I haven't seen. Actually, let me turn that into a question because I'm not too knowledgeable about this. Uh, the recent comic book writers, I don't see like some of the more recent ones, and I'm not sure if that's because they're just not geographically located, or like if they don't know about the show. I do see
Well,
J.K. Woodward's going to be there, who's
right,
done
because
a
he's
ton of
local.
art. Right,
Yeah. But the writers of the current Star Trek comic material are nowhere near the East Coast, and I don't think Shore Leave thinks to invite the comic book people, not out
right,
of prejudice, just out of they haven't considered it.
right.
Um, you know, because IDW is doing some lovely stuff, and their editor was at the Trek Long Island show. It's just nice to see her enthusiasm for it all.
Hmm. You're talking about Heather Antos, or is that someone
Yes, I
else?
am. Heather,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, she's done some really great work with the franchise. Um, are you currently reading the stuff that they're putting out?
I am.
Do you have a favorite series or a storyline that they're doing? Because they're going in probably about 10 different directions right now.
Right. And they're riding high on nice collaboration with the current production offices, which is what is key to successful Star Trek. A favorite? No, not particularly any one of them. Kirsten Byers, a friend, so the stuff she co-writes with Mike Johnson, are particularly good stuff.
Yeah, the Sons of Star Trek series, for whatever reason, really did it for me.
I have
Both
not
the
seen that
art and
one
the
yet.
story.
It's on order.
Yeah, yeah. It was enjoyable, and it was the kind of Trek that I've always enjoyed, with the optimistic and positive attitudes about terrible things happening around you and how do you deal with it. And uh, there's a bright future, hopefully, with IDW and the franchise.
I would imagine, it's been a property that many publishers have had over the years. Many of them have done really lovely stuff. And again, it has a lot to do with what's currently on air, what the people behind the production office. As a licensee, it's terrific because John Van Sitters and previously Paula Block have been marvelous to work with and make it so much easier.
Right. Yeah, I think that the franchise has been with pretty much all the big publishers. I can only think of like maybe a couple, like Dark Horse or Image, that they haven't had at least something released by them. And
Mhm.
um So you mentioned earlier that you've got this Superman book that's coming out,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
and from the pictures, this thing's going to be like a trailer. You're going to need a trailer to get it home.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, it is. They did an oversized Batman book about 5 years ago that I was interviewed for. That is big. This is going to be roughly the same dimensions and just more pages. It's going to be lovely.
yeah. So is that a sole work of yours, or you're working on that with
No, no, Ed Gross has been the writer, and Ed Ed did this amazing oral history of Superman that came
Mhm.
out a year and a half ago, and parlayed all of that information to start writing the Superman book. But the dreaded deadline doom
Mm.
was catching up to him. So his editor, who used to work with me at DC, Tim Pilcher, reached out to me to step in and help write some of the material, and it just kept growing to the point where I was co-credited. So it's going to be a gorgeous book.
Yeah, it does look interesting. I find that as I've gotten older and I've picked through more and more dollar bins, that I'm getting more and more attracted to the character.
Okay.
Mostly because of like the same things that attract me to Trek is what attracts me to him: the positive outlook, the optimism, the big blue Boy Scout, just like the whole feel
Hmm.
of him. And you mentioned that like the material has just like grown and grown, and it's something that I've noticed on your blog as well, where you're writing these long for websites at least, just like stories of your own life. Uh, are you
Mhm.
writing those just to get it out of your mind and on paper, or is that something that you're gearing towards
Well,
having a, biography come out soon?
no, I'm not planning a memoir like that. No. When I did the month by month history of my 1 year at Marvel, I forget what the impetus was. I guess people had forgotten I was there because they think of me as the DC guy, which makes sense, given my 20 years combined. And the 1 year at Marvel was just so topsy-turvy. I thought it was worth giving it a second look. And then I just recently wrote about my 10-month sojourn into the internet startup right before the bubble burst at the turn of
Right.
the century. So that was interesting. And then I've got more about this other stuff that most people don't know about because it's not DC or Marvel or big franchise stuff. But I did a lot of custom work or consulting with other companies that I'll be writing about hopefully this summer.
Well, if you ever do throw it all into one book and make it into a thing, I'll definitely read it. I know that I've read biographies of other people, both fictional and real, that have far less going on in their lives than what you've had.
Yeah, it's not occurred to me to collect them and do anything like that, but who knows? When I retire, we'll see.
Right. Never
Maybe I
say
need
never,
something
as
to
they say.
do.
So like I said, this is my first shore leave that I'm going to. I've talked to a whole bunch of authors. They've given me all sorts of like, heads up of like, what you should look for and what you shouldn't look for. Uh, this, however, is the first year at the new location.
Yes, which changes everything.
Right. Because it's my understanding that it was always at this other hotel for all of the previous shows.
The 1 year they tried in downtown Baltimore in 1986, and they went right back to the Hunt Valley Inn. So
It
I
feels like they
guess
learned a
it didn't
lesson
work.
then. Right. So as a first time convention goer, what should I be looking for when I go to it?
Study the program before you walk in the door.
Right.
Figure out, are there media guests you absolutely positively want to see, and figure out where they are on the schedule,
Hmm.
and then figure out what they're opposite. And you have to decide, do I really want to hear this person talk, or do I really want to hear that person talk? Because while you may hear authors in other panels, if it's a topic you're particularly interested in, you know, a bunch of Star Trek authors talking about Discovery now that the show is over is a one-time thing. And if you're a real big Discovery fan, is that worth skipping the media guest who might be opposite it? Because the main program room is all the media guests, and there's a track. There's usually an author-centric
Hmm.
track. There's tracks for kids. There's tracks, writing workshops. There's going to be some fan-generated tracks that they run. So really study the playbook.
It sounds like a lot like college then. You got to figure out like, do you actually want to do underwater basket weaving, or do you have to take one of those core credits like when it actually comes up?
Right. And then you have to figure out, all right, when do I want to see the art show? When do I want to see the dealer's room? And plan your nights accordingly. Do you want to be in the bar, or do you want to be there for the masquerade, which is always entertaining?
Right. Yeah, I've heard that the dealer's room, what exactly is happening in there? Are they actually doing sales?
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay, so I've not seen a map for the layout, but usually fan organizations or have tables that are usually outside the programming or dealers' rooms. Authors will have some tables, some set up in the dealer's room. They actually buy space there, like e-spec books. Others, like Crazy Press, we're out in the main hall where people are walking by us all the time. I don't know how the layout's going to be for this year, but the dealers themselves, the actual vendors, they're going to have, you name it, Trek merchandise, Trek apparel, books, jewelry, swords and costumes, and they've got more dealers room space, so there's room to expand and grow. And I think they're going to shift who is in the hall, who's in the main room, because they got all the space to fill. We'll find out together.
Right. Well, not this year, of course, but
Oh,
next
people will
year.
send me pictures, I'm
Well,
sure.
that's true. The group of authors that have said that they're all going, and I've spoken
Mhm.
to already, they all seem very close knit and very welcoming to each other. Uh,
Well, that again has grown organically, so, you know, once the other authors like Peter David and Michael Jan Friedman started showing up in the 80s, then other people in the New York tri-state area said, oh, this sounds great. And they get an invitation and they show up. And it just grew and grew and grew. And then um, over the years, the convention has allocated money to bring people in from far away, like Diane Duane from Ireland or Kirsten Beyer from California, so they've been accommodating in that way. And yes, there's a lot of drinking that goes on, and therefore a lot of camaraderie happens. Um, and then we usually try and have an author's dinner together, which is a huge affair because there's so many of us, plus spouses and children.
right. And of course, it's going to be in a new area of the state now, or
Yeah, I
the
don't
next
know.
state
I mean,
over.
there was a Andy Nelson's, which is a barbecue joint that has been rated as one of the top 10 in the nation, has always been our source for the Hunt Valley Inn conventions. I don't know where we're going to find something equivalent in Lancaster, but I have faith.
Yeah, absolutely. So the part of the reason that you're not coming this year is because of the change in venue forced them to change
No.
the
Well, it
well, the
changed the
change.
date. So yes, my
Right,
nephew's wedding became
right,
a complication.
right. So do you know if they're shifting back to their normal time frame in the
That's
future?
the goal,
Right.
but
Yeah, they're
that's
gonna have
between
to.
the organizers and the hotel. Now, the hotel was had never done a convention before. They were a little bit skeptical about what all this meant and what it was all about. But the day they put the room reservations on sale and sold out in 11 hours, they suddenly looked at the convention with, oh, you are serious.
Right. Yeah, I unfortunately decided to wait a couple weeks to make my reservation, so I'm gonna be offsite.
Well, unlike the Hunt Valley Inn, I'm told that there are satellite hotels across the street, which makes it a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, there's a ton of hotels in that area. Also, a lot of
Mhm.
like family amusement type situations.
Well, Lancaster lends itself to tourism, so
Right.
they accommodate all that. You will eat well there. Lancaster is known for its good home cooking.
Yeah, my wife is from the Pennsylvania area, and there's an ice cream place over there that like she saw the like Father's ice cream. That
Ah,
she was like, oh my God, it's that ice cream place. You got to go have some and then tell me what you think of it. And I was like, okay, if my
okay.
only homework from you is to get some ice cream, then I'll probably be able to do that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty doable.
Yeah. Okay, so as you surmised in your email, this is actually my lunch break that I'm doing this on.
That's fine.
Unfortunately, normally I for all the other ones I've been like, oh, I've had you this long, maybe I can have you for another couple minutes. But I do actually have some project management to get back to because I'm working for the state doing project management work now.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to make myself available in the future
Okay, it
to
was
be
a pleasure
continued.
speaking to you. Thank you very much for making time for me.
Not a problem, Adam.
All
Take
right,
care
have
of
a great
yourself.
day.